Hello friends, it's a very exciting day here at Papercrafts. Today I have our very first tutorial for you, and it is a baby album, one of the first that I've ever done, but I'm very excited about it. So let's go ahead and get started with a walkthrough and then the tutorial. Alright, so for this baby album I used the Echo Park Our Baby Boy. So if you are not familiar with this collection came out this spring. Yeah, came out this spring, and they did it in a gender neutral. I have it right here. I always tell you guys I'm going to be so prepared, and then I change my mind. There we go. So they did it in a gender neutral for Our Baby. They did a boy version, and then they also did a Our Baby girl version. Where's my paper pad? I have no idea where my paper pad is. Oh, there it is. Our Baby girl, which you can see I'm already working on the girl version of this and the Our Baby version. So I'll have 3 versions of this, so be on the lookout for those project shares. But, so let's go ahead and get started with a walkthrough of this little guy. So here's our front cover, which I have here on the front. Flowers from my stash. And then I did pattern paper, solid, foil, all matted, stitched. These were little gemmies out of my stash as well. And then I decided I wanted on these little baby albums to put a little open tab so you can put a picture of your kiddo in there. And I totally thought I was done with this. I need to stamp that really fast. 3x4. We're gonna do it right here on film because otherwise I'm gonna forget and then I'm gonna put it away. I'm gonna be really upset. So these are perfect for 3x4s. If you've not seen these stamps either, these are Country Craft Creation stamps. They're very hard to come by. How did I just get ink in there? Go figure. They're super hard to come by. You kind of gotta be on the watch for them when they come in so you can snag them super fast. But that's our front cover. Destroying things left and right already this morning. There's our front cover. I have the spine. So if you saw my other project share, I did a different baby album. It's built exactly the same way as this one. I just did some more embellishing in this one, but I cleaned up my spine a little bit. I didn't want to do stitching on my spine. These little chunks are just too dang small to get the stitching in without it like destroying my paper. So no stitching on my spine. There's the back with a little piece of ephemera on there. And there's our outside. I've got a ribbon tie closure that matches my solids in here. So let's go ahead and get this little guy open. So inside, we've got a pocket in the front that I just used my leftovers. So I have the 6x6 of this, and then I ordered the 12x12 cut apart that had the months on it. So these are leftovers. This is a leftover from that. I believe this was inside the 6x6. So just a couple little photo mats in there with some foil on that pocket. And then what we did was we went through, you'll see in the tutorial, there's 2 signatures in this album and there's enough to do all 12 months. So this is basically a baby's first year, and every single page I went ahead and put the month, and then there's a spot for a 3x5 photo. So you can go ahead and do your 1 month pictures, and then when you're done with their first month, this would be a great either for, you know, a first birthday gift for a mom or dad, or even for that very first out of the gate, you know, congratulations, you had a baby, here you go. So there's all of those that are done. I went through and put photo quarters on all of them so you can just slide your 3x5 photos in, and then all of these little months that are open so that they don't interfere with the photo. And then every signature's got a pocket page, so there's the rest of those cut aparts with ribbon on them, and then I just put that seafoam green on the back. So if you wanted to journal or put another card, you totally could. Another picture, you totally could. Keep in mind when you go through the tutorial, there is a note about these inserts. I changed them before I finished this, so I did end up putting a note in here. I did change the size, so if you want to build this exactly the same way I did, you can see that in there. But every page looks exactly the same. just those spots for their 12 months. And then in the back, I did another pocket. And then what I did was I have these little 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 envelopes in my craft room. And there are a ton of 2 by 2 cut aparts that came with like the months. And so I made little tags out of them. But if you put these in here, they're going to be like too small and you're not going to see them. You're just going to see this. So I put them all in this little envelope so that they don't get lost. And then I just covered it with some pattern paper and tucked it in that back pocket. So there is the project share for this. So let's go ahead and get started on the tutorial. Here we go, friends. So we're gonna go ahead and see how this goes. Be patient as we figure this out together. So for this album, you are going to need 2 pieces of chipboard that are 6 1/2 by 6 1/2. Mine are already cut because these are going to be your front and your back. And then your spine is going to be 6 1/2 by 1 inch. So we're going to need all of those pieces. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cover our chipboard with white paper. I'm going to do a white base. So we're going to do 2 pieces that are, I'm going to go ahead and see if we can zoom in here. I feel like that will be more beneficial. Woo! As we drop the camera, bad move. I wrote really small. So these are 8 1/2 by 8 1/2. And what I did was I went through and I scored at 1 inch in on all 4 sides. So I don't know about you, but my scoreboard is off by a little bit. So what I like to do instead is I will go ahead and drop mine in, and then instead of like actually looking at, like you can see this one's close, but sometimes they're like a little bit off. So I'll just go in and go 1 turn, 1 turn, and just go all the way around. So for our front and our back, it's 8 1/2 by 8 1/2, and we're gonna go ahead and stick these right in the middle. I find that scoring on all the sides just helps so that your paper doesn't crack on you. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do. And I already put score tape on the back. And I'm just lining it up inside of my score marks. So we're gonna do the front and the back. Now that those are in the center, we're gonna go ahead and like miter our edges here. So I always go just a little off, and then I try to, I don't know if you can see it. So where my score mark is, I always try to cut on the outside of the score mark, not on the inside, because then my corner will show. So let's see if I can get this in frame. So see, I'm on the outside of that score line. And I just do that all the way around. Okay, I've got mine all cut. Now, we're gonna go ahead and work on getting all of these folded in and covered. Now, as we go about and do this, if you kind of made an oof and your chipboard's gonna show, you can always keep the little pieces that you cut out and you can just like glue them on there so that when you fold this, which here, we'll do this really fast. Okay, when you go to fold this, if you oopsed that you tucked this in, then it will be white and not brown. So there's a little trick for you. So now I'm just going to go ahead and run score tape along all 4 of these, and then we'll flip them in. Okay, now when you go through and do all of these, it's really important that your score tape is on this outside edge, not so much this inside edge. You'll see some people, like if there's really close, or they'll run glue along it. I prefer to have that little bit of wiggle space, just because I find that if this edge is sealed, I don't have issues down here. I don't have bubbling. I don't have to fight any other score tape. So once you get all 4 edges done, then you just go through, and what I do is I peel my score tape off. And then to make sure, because we already scored this is why it's nice that we scored 1 inch all the way around. This shouldn't fight us too much when we go to fold. So since I already scored it, I just take my score tape off, and I flip and push it this way. And I get a nice clean seal, because it helps like bend it and turn it around. So let's do that with all 4 edges. I'm going to do that and the other one, and then we'll talk about the spine. Okay, now I've got both of those covered. So now we got to talk about our little spine friend here. So when we do this, we cover it almost exactly the same way. So I cut a piece of paper that's 8.5 by 3, and then I went in my scoreboard again and scored it 1 inch on all the sides. Now, when we do this, we don't fold it in on all 4 sides like we did with the covers. This method, I believe, now I've never seen the original video. I got it from Tiffany over at Let's Get Scrappy. She's like my go-to. I usually find one YouTube crafter that I just love, and that's who I just like binge watch, and it's been Tiffany, which is why I talk about her in all of my videos. But this method is what they call the lay flat method. This is what Tiffany calls it, and I believe she got it from Tamara at Country Craft Creations. Don't quote me on that. I'm just trying to give credit where credit is due, because this was not my method. I just learned it from somebody, and this is how I do all of my albums ever since. I don't like the way where you take the paper and you overlap it, and then you put your stuff in, and you put your spacers in, and then you cover it all up, and then you bend it. I don't like it at all. I don't like finding the seams in weird spots. I just don't like it. So this is what I always do instead. It's my favorite. So we put this in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to miter the long sides. So the 6.5 inch sides. So we're going to go in, take our scissors, and we are going to do what we normally do. And we're going to cut these wide. And when I mean wide, I mean outside of that score line. Okay, now rather than coming in and mitering these at an angle, because we're not trying to cover this whole thing up and it's our spine, we're going to cut right along the score line on these. And it's better to overcut and have excess and have to trim it than it is to undercut and not be able to get that paper back. Okay. So now we've got that all in shape. We're going to go ahead and take these 2 little flaps on the ends, and we're going to fold them in and glue them onto our chipboard. I just got to get my glue cap on. So come through, put some glue on here. I'll bend this exactly like I did for my covers. because remember, we already scored them before we even put our chipboard on. Okay, and sometimes when you do it wider, it will help you not have, sorry, I know I keep going out of frame. I should just adjust the camera. When you go wider, then you won't have this chipboard problem. But usually I end up doing my binding so that I don't have too much of an issue. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop here and move the camera really fast. All right, that's much better. I'm like keep working clear down here because I'm sitting down here and I want to make sure that we can see it. So we've got everything all ready to go. Now, we are not going to bind it like this. So you have to be very careful when you go to do this part, because we don't want to put our tape here because we're not going to overlap these like this. What we're going to do is we're going to work our paper a little bit here. Keep in mind, we already scored it, so it should play pretty nice with us. So we're just going to work this a little bit. Now what we're going to do is these little flaps are going to bind our our covers on the inside. So we'll end up laying it down just like this. Okay, and what that'll do is I'll show you as soon as we're done. It'll help it to lay flat when you open it. And we can add some hinges to our pages so that it lays flat versus having to normally fight when you do this situation. Sometimes this won't lay flat because you've got the binding on the outside. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some score tape on here. Okay, so we've got our score tape on here. And then what we're gonna do is we are also gonna use glue, but I don't wanna glue it until I have it like right on and ready to do my one side. So usually I like to make sure that I'm all lined up here. And I do kind of wing this. So I used to use my scoreboard when I did it, and I kept having issues where my covers weren't lining up. So what I like to do instead is take my score tape off, run some glue in here, okay, ooh, then I like to have this folded. It's kind of a trick. Fold it, and then I just kind of bend this over ever so gently, and then before I fully press it, I fold it back over this way, and that makes sure that I've got a nice flexible hold there. Do the same thing here with our other side. And I find lining it up like this, like trusting my gut here and kind of lining it up along the tops and the bottoms goes so much better than trying to use anything else. Okay, and now you can see we don't have any weird like lines here from putting paper together. And you can see this is super flexible, so when it comes out, boop, it's going to lay flat. So absolutely love that method. Works like a charm. So now we've pretty much got our base done. This is all put together, ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead now and put our binding in, which is kind of like my second least favorite part. I love this part. I hate putting my binding in. So we have a 1-inch spine here, and we're going to do 2 signatures in here. I'm going to get closer to the camera so you can see my score lines. Can you? Not really. But there are score lines already pre-done, I promise. So when we do this here, we're going to score this. This is a 7 by 6. So notice it's not going to meet my top and my bottom. I'm going to have a little bit of play in there. Across my 7, I'm going to score at 2 inches, 2 3/8, 2 7/8, 3 3/8, 3 5/8, 4 1/4, 4 1/4, 4 1/8, 4 5/8, and 5 inches. Now, some people do it this way. I hate doing it this way. I map mine out on a piece of paper based on how big I want my gussets in between. Or if I flip it over, if you can see those lines better. Probably. But what I do is what I've written up here. I find this so much easier in my brain to like count the ticks. So I've got 7 inches here. I go to the 2 and I score, and then I know I want a 3/8 inch gusset. So I go, okay, these are 8s. I go 1, 2, 3, drop. And then I want a half, so that's going to be 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, drop. So I sit and count. So if that works better for you to know how far apart you want your scores instead, because like I said earlier, sometimes our scoreboards are off. I don't know why. I don't know. Probably because they're done in mass manufacturing. They come out a little bit funky. Like you can see that this is a 7-inch paper, but I can't score at the 7. Like I'm shy. So, it's totally up to you. I prefer to count. Makes my life a lot easier, but if you want to do it this way, both of those measurements are there for you. It's whatever works best for you. This is the way I like to do it. So with our binding here, I'm going to move this up. Okay, and this is my underside, so I'm going to flip it over to do this. What we're going to do is in between every 1/2 inch, so I've got 2 little 1/2 inches right here. These are my flaps to bind my pages to. So I'm going to fold those over. Grab my bone folder. Okay, so there's my little making peaks and valleys. There's my other one. So there's my 2 that are going to stand up. Now at the bottom of those halves, I want those to be flat. So I'm also going to fold those over as well. Now when I do mine, I usually have I put extra markings when I make my things. So like most people, what they generally do is they'll start at this line and have this score line. They'll do all the rest of these and they'll stop at their other score line. So there's my valley. But I add like a starting point and an ending point. So where my 2-inch score line is and my 5-inch score line are where, when I finish, my binding should line up with my edge of my spine on here. So they should line up right in here. And that just helps me to line it up when I go to mat it together and get it all good to go. Because I can't stand not being centered. So there's my 2 little flappies. I'm gonna go ahead and put some score tape on this, and you'll see here, ooh, if I do this right, I know it's a little dark, but my 5-inch score line is right there. So when we end up finishing this and putting it together, it'll line up there with where that spine is. So we'll be all good to go. And that just helps me, like I said, to line it up, make sure that my my pages end up in the center, and I just like it that way. So I'm gonna go through and put score tape on here. So I need to score tape and adhere it together on the underside so that these stick. And then before I even put this in, I need to make sure I put score tape on my flaps. So when I go to bind my pages will be ready to go. So I'm going to go through under here. So on one of my 1/2 inches, we're going to put some score tape. We only need to do one side because they're going to stick together. And you want it close to the outside score line, so next to the 3/8 or the 1/4. You don't want it close to this score line. Like you want to get it, and if you have had finished score tape, that's great. Mine's 3/8, but you want to be along this line so that you don't have any play down here. You want that to be a nice, good seal. Okay. So before I take that score tape off, I'm actually going to flip this over. Now on my up-facing side that I'm going to put my pages on, I'm going to put score tape on those, all 4 of those 1/2 inches, and I want that one to be close to my mountain. So I want those to be close together. My mountain peaks. Now, on the other baby album that I did not do 1/2 inch mountains. I guess that's what I'm just going to call them now. I'm sure there's an actual name for them. I did not do 1/2 inch mountains. I did 1/4 inch mountains, and I'm a little bit nervous that my pages are going to come off. So on this one, I did the 1/2 inch so that we've got a tighter seal on those pages. So we are not going to take the score tape off. Okay, that is for when we go to put our pages in. But we are going to flip it back over where my writing is, and we're going to pull this score tape off, and we're going to pinch these together. So I like to line mine back up like this. And because we already folded everything, it should not be too much of a struggle. Okay. So there we go. There's our 2 little flaps that we can bind our pages on, and we'll put these right in there. Beautiful, just like that. So let's go ahead and put that on there. I'm actually going to, okay, I'm gonna line that up. I'm gonna see where I like it, and I'm gonna mark it, because again, I'm famous for moving it or getting it stuck down where I don't actually want it. Okay, so those marks will tell me that that's where, like I said, this is not as big as my spine is, which is intentional. So when I go to put it back on, it'll be in the right spot. So to bind this, I am going to use score tape and glue. So this is 1 inch. Yeah. So I have, trying to decide what I want to do here. I'm going to put my 3/8 inch in where I have those 3/8 on. And then I have 1/8 inch tape that I'm going to drop in the middle in here. And you can tell I have all kinds of tape. I buy my tape from everywhere, or if I can get it for free. Like, I'm pretty sure these were either free rolls or dirt cheap rolls from A Cherry on Top, which, I hate to say it, but I'm going to be honest, I don't love this, and I've barely used any of it. But I have several rolls of this 1/8, so I will end up using it, but I don't love it. I much prefer the actual score tape brand, so this brand. Or I actually really like the scrapbook.com tape as well. Those are the brands I prefer. All right, so we got those on there. Go ahead and just run a little bit more tape through here. The more adhesive you can get on here, the better. Because I find that if you do kind of what we did on the cover and leave too much play, you will end up with some awkward bubbles because it's attached to your spine and your covers. It's going to move as the album gets used. So, not the best plan to leave some area of play. So I'm just going to fill it in as best as I can. And then what we'll do is we'll run a little bit of glue through that binding in there. And we'll be good to go. All right, last piece. So we're going to peel all this off. I'm going to make sure it's stuck on there really good. Start peeling it off. I also highly recommend, if you are just starting crafting or if you're a seasoned crafter and you don't do this, I always have a little garbage bin. I have a green one of these and a red one. Always having it at your workstation, because I find it just helps to keep it clean. I found having a trash can like on the floor, I was still too lazy to like reach that little extra amount to throw, especially like my score tape, whatever this is, excess, discard. I was lazy. So I find having that bin makes a ton of difference. So I lied, I didn't put any glue on here yet. So I'm going to go ahead, I have my fingers in between over here. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. I'm just going to run some glue in here. I really should have put my needle in there. Just kind of run some glue for some extra, especially like through here where I know that is where it's going to be on the front cover and the back cover. So I want that to be able to stick really well. Okay, moment of truth. I'm very nervous to do this because I always screw something up and I don't want to do it on camera, but you live and you learn. All right, so I'm going to line it up where I had those pencil marks. You cannot see my score lines because we're on white paper and my room is not bright enough, but I've got it there. So right there is my score line. I have it lined up with the edge. And I'm actually going to bring this up. Get that sealed in. Okay. I'll do the same thing on this side. Score line is, try to make it play a little bit nicer. And all I'm trying to do is alleviate having like this situation once we actually have it stuck down. So I'm just trying to get a nice, good, firm seal so that we don't have any funky bubbles going on. We did have tape down in there, so make sure that gets stuck down. And glue all over the place. All right, play with that a little bit, but our base is now totally done. Okay, so this is the basic construction for most albums, even like folios. Like, you can change the sizes, you can change the spine and the binding to whatever fits you. But this is basically how most of them are made. This is how we do things. Put my needle and my glue this time. Okay, so I'm gonna set this aside and we're gonna talk about how we make these signatures. All right, to do these signature pages, so the brilliance of this album is that the pages are not difficult. Now again, everything I know I've learned from somebody else, so this is not new. I learned this from somebody on YouTube, so do not give me credit for any of this. I am just showing you what I know and what I did. So because this is a 6.5 by 6.5, we can use a full sheet of 12 by 12 to make our signature pages and actually have 6 pages in the signature. So it's perfect. Super easy, doesn't take a ton of time, doesn't require you to like glue and paper clip and do all these like funky flaps. It just works out wonderfully. So you're going to take one full sheet of 12 by 12 paper. I have 2 here because we're going to do 2 signatures. Okay, you're going to put it in your scoreboard and you're going to score all the way down at 6 inches on both sides. So pop it in, score 6 inches all the way down, turn, score 6 inches all the way down. Now we've got 4 quadrants. Okay, however many signatures you want, that's what you're going to do. Now you can alter this for different size pages. You would just have to, you know, think a little harder as far as, okay, do I want a 4 by 4? Just whatever you're going to do, however big you want your height and width, or length and width, whichever version you want to use, just double it and then think accordingly to when you turn it in your scoreboard. So we're going to take it. Now it doesn't matter which of these 4 lines you do, but we're going to cut one. So we're going to cut all the way in to the center on both of these. Okay, now we've got them all cut. You're going to take your page, you got your little flappies. We're going to fold them over. I know you already scored it, but sometimes, like I said, our scoreboards are off. So try to clean that up a little bit. So like you can see, mine's a little wonky, so I had to fix it. Tighten that up with my bone folder. Do the same thing up here. Come on, buddy. There we go. Okay, now because we cut this, just take it, fold this over. And now we have our signature. Here's a page and a page. This is where it will bind into our book. So right here is where it'll go on those flaps, and you can decide if you want it to be a pocket page or if you just want to seal it up. So you could do a pocket page up top here, and you could slide them in this way, or you could leave it open and slide in this way, or you could just seal it and just have all these pages. But there's one signature. Let's do the same thing with this one. All right, now our signatures are done. So some people like to put theirs in right away into their book. I have learned that I usually can't get mine straight if I do that. So we're gonna go ahead, since I've got the basic construction done, and start putting together this baby album. So I decided that I was going to use this seafoam green to mat. Now you do not have to mat like I do. There are lots of people who do beautiful albums that only mat once. I'm just one of the crazy few that like to do it this way, and it's totally up to you. You can if you want to and add extra work like those of us that do it, or you can just go ahead and put your pattern paper on it. But I'm gonna go ahead and mat the whole thing with this, and because these are, I'll get my ruler out and just double triple check before I open my mouth, because I would be the one to say the wrong thing, even though we literally just did this. Oh, come on, ruler. These are 6 by 6. Double triple check, even though I know we just did it. 6 by 6. So I'm going to go in. I prefer 1/8 inch matting, not 16. So these are cut to 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Because I'm going to use the same color the whole way through, so I have enough of these for all of them. And then my pattern paper is going to be 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So that I have a 1/8 inch border all the way around. So I have mine all cut. I have no idea how I'm going to lay this out, so I'm going to go ahead and just do editing magic so that you can just watch as I kind of figure out how I want to do this, and then we'll come back when I'm ready to start doing some construction and do some talking again. Alright, so I've got these signatures kind of put together, and I want to talk a little bit about what I got going on before I again do some editing magic and put the rest of this together. So you saw a little bit as it was on warp speed of what I had going on. So I went through, I had my stack of pattern paper, my stack of mats, and then something I had come up with and I wanted to do was, because there are 12 pages in here, this is perfect for a 1-year album in a super simple way. So I have all these months that came with this collection, and I pre-punched them out. I have a little scallop punch that I did it with, and it was perfect. I think this was my 2-inch punch. And I wanted to make sure that when I put these on, so instead of going through and just doing normally like colors that match, so usually I'll make sure that these 2 pages go together. I wanted to make sure that my pages kind of matched the numbers, or that the numbers would stand out. So when I got to the end over here and was trying to put these ones together, I saw I was missing 1 page of pattern paper, which is not a big deal, but I decided I wanted to do this dark blue with this seafoam green, so that this seafoam green was with the feet, instead of having the blue on the blue and the green on the green. So that was kind of the logic in there. I'm not going to put these and map them on like this, but I wanted to make sure that they were all going to match. And another trick of the trade is to go ahead and nothing in here is matted, nothing is glued down. I just have them all paper clipped. So if I changed my mind or I didn't like the print, I could just go in, especially because this is double-sided, I could take it out, flip it over, and change my mind. So that was how I put those together. I've got them all ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead now and put us on some little editing magic, and I'm going to go through and get all of this matted. Alright, so there we've got it. All 12 pages are double matted and they're on their signatures. Now, if you wanted to be done at this point, you totally could. You could put it in your album, do your covers, throw your ribbon tie closure on, or your whatever closure you wanted to use, or not a closure at all, And like I said, you could be done at this point. I am going to go through though and put these little months on, and I'm gonna go and put some photo mats in here. So I'm gonna do some photo mats and some photo corners and the months. So I'm gonna go through and do that on all 12 pages. We'll see if I bit off more than I can chew. And then I will be back to show you that, and I will show you how we put it in the binding. All right, I definitely bit off more than I could chew, but I got it done. So I've got all 12 pages matted. They all have a photo mat on there. I stamped the photo mat. They've got tuck spots, so you can just slide your picture right in and you're done. So whoever gets the album will have the nicest time ever, even though I did not. My fingers hurt so bad from folding all these photo corners and peeling tape, but it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we put these together. So I already kind of did a little cheat on this one, but I'm going to show you. So keep in mind that we have this signature ready to go, but it still opens for a 12 by 12. So we don't want, when we go to put this into our book, we don't want to have a double opening here and here. We need to seal up one of these sides. So I want mine to still be pocket pages. Again, you could close yours up on both sides and just have one page. I'm going to do pocket pages and I'm going to do top loading. So I'm going to go ahead and seal up this part right here. If you wanted a side loading, you would seal up here. So the best way I have to do this is to actually open it up, because here's my pages, so I know upright, and I'm going to go ahead and lay them flat. So right here is where I want to seal. Now, you could use tape. I recommend that you don't, because your tape will never dry. So it will always be sticky, which will cause your inserts to get stuck. So some sort of wet glue is going to be your best bet. So I just put wet glue along the whole edge. I can get my needle back in my glue there. And because this isn't in the book yet, we can just sandwich this up. And we are cooking. Because then these, whoop, fold right back to where they should be. So I've got my top loading pocket, my side is sealed. We're all good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we put these into our book. So I have not touched this since we put it together. But we're going to do something a little bit funky here to get it in. So we're going to go ahead and get them to lay flat. And like I told you before, I definitely prefer getting my signatures fully done before I put them in. And I'm going to do my front one first. So what I do is I just pull a little bit of my score tape down on both sides. And you want it to be not facing up towards you, because that's where the signature is going to go. So I have these little tails coming out and they're going towards my book. I'm going to take my my signature. Oh, sugar. We definitely forgot to do something. I knew I was going to forget something. Okay, before we do that, at least I caught it. Which I should have done before we put this in the book when we did the spines, we are going to miter these hinges. So we're going to miter them so that when we go and put, oh, I can't use those scissors, our page in, stab myself with scissors, way to go. We're not fighting that, so it's going to be a nice smooth, and yeah, I'm turning this all kinds of stupid ways, and I'm probably out of the camera view. But what it does is it allows us to kind of slide our page on and not fight the edges. So it just makes it a much smoother adherence. So getting those on there. All right, there we go. Now we're cooking. All right, so back to this thought process here. decided I wanted to be the front. That's what I want to be the front. Okay. Now we're going to peel those again. I am not going to say it, but I am going to say it. And then I'll find some wood to knock on. But I feel like we're doing okay here considering what we got going on. All right, so I've got those down. I'm going to take my signature. I'm going to take where my opening is. Now, everybody does this a little bit different. I like to take mine and slide it because I know that this bottom is sealed. So I like to slide it and then kind of bunny hop, I guess, over those pieces of tape so they don't stick out. And then you don't want, I know you definitely can't see this right now, but I can. You don't want your page, your signature, to go all the way flush. I usually line mine up, which is why I can see it and you can't. I usually line mine up with my tape line, which I'll show you on the other hinge here. So I line it up, I pinch where I pulled my tape, because I know that now that's stuck together. And then because we had our little tails out, we can just pull our tape out. And there we go. That side's done. Now once you get one side done, remember you got to do the other side. So I got to pull this little tail out. And usually once you get the one done, it's so much smoother to do the other. So there we go. Our signature is in. So now I will explain a little bit more that we got that one in. So what I meant was when I go to put it in, remember when we put our score tape in, we didn't fill the whole hinge, right? We put it right against our score line. So I have, mine's 1/8 because I have 1/2 inch hinges, mountains, whatever you want to call them. And then I use 3/8 inch tape. So that means that right here I have 1/8 of an inch of the hinge that's not being used. And this allows it, see how this is laying down? It allows this to flip pretty smoothly without it standing straight up. If you put your page all the way down on that hinge, it's not going to be able to move as freely. You'll have stuck this together. So it won't be able to move like it should. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do this again, and I'm going to try to see if I can get this better in the camera for you. Probably not, but I'm going to try really hard. Test my luck. Why not? So I'm just pulling that score tape down again. Leaving my little tails out. I'm going to go ahead and slide my page in. Bunny hop over that. Okay, let's see if I can do this. So you can kind of, ooh, can you see? You can see. See how I can see the tape right there? I'm going to try to line my page up with where that is. Get it nice and tight on where my gusset was. Like I said earlier, ooh, I got to do this sitting down. I pinch where we pulled the tape for the piggy tail. Pull it out. You can see it kind of move a little bit, so make sure you adjust so that it ends up being straight. And then we just pull this pigtail and voila. Okay, so we are pretty much done with most of the tutorial part. So I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to go ahead and finish the, the covers. And then, we'll do a little flip through to wrap it up, even though I know you already saw most of it in the beginning, but I haven't finished it yet to film the beginning of the video. So, I will be back with a little quick flip through so you can see what I did. I will show you how to put the ribbon in, so you'll get to see the very last piece of this, and then we'll be done with this tutorial. So that is a 6.5 by 6.5 mini album. All right, friends, the last two things I want to show you. So when we left off, I said I was going to go ahead, we'd put the pages in. I told you that I was going to go ahead and do some matting and get my covers and things ready, and I was going to show you how to do the ribbon. And then I also remembered we need to talk about the inserts. So Went in, matted my covers on the inside. So that was all that was left on the inside. I've got my covers all ready to go, so I can show you this ribbon and then these inserts. So you've already seen the full video for the intro, and you've seen everything that's in there. So when you go through and do your inserts for your pocket pages, they are 4 3/4 by 6. Now you could always, this was just scraps I had, and I know I've got several that are 6 inches tall, so I'm just going to roll with it. But you want 4 3/4 wide, and you can always play with yours depending on where you glued it. I believe another one I did, I was able to get to like 5 inches, but because that was, I had a smaller hinge. So with our 1/2 inch hinge for our pocket pages, we're going to go 4 3/4 ish. And if you want yours to stick out taller, so when I put mine in, because our pages are 6 inches and this insert is 6 inches, hypothetically, because remember this was, I did mine as a top load, so my fold is here. I don't have any glue down here. This will go all the way to the bottom and get hidden down in there. So you could always go taller than 6 inches so that it sticks out. I'm just going to leave mine because I have plenty of scraps that are 6 inches and I just won't push it all the way down. But that's what you'll use for your inserts. Those are the sizes for this exact album. When you do your tie closures, so this is what I always do, is I always come in, I try really hard, so I use my mat and try to get about the center-ish. I always put it back a little bit knowing that like I've matted, so part of mine's going to show. I don't want it right on the edge. I go ahead and put that on there. Pull my tape off. Apparently we're having an attitude now. Take my ribbon, which this is 10 inches long of ribbon. I usually go in about a inch. Sometimes I go more. I only recently started measuring my ribbon. So I go in a little bit. Now, I don't just leave that because I'm crazy and I'm always afraid somebody's going to like rip their closure out. So I always go back in and put another piece on the other side of it. And then I know I'll put my covers over the top of that. To make sure that they line up on the front and the back, I just flip it over. Take some tape again. This time I don't really care as much where I put my tape, but I'm looking at my ribbon as I'm putting my tape down, and it doesn't matter which way you put your tape. And then in trying to save some ribbon here, I just try to kind of line it up, knowing that I'll probably trim my edges a little bit. Stick it on there, put my top piece, and I'm done. All I have to do now is peel those off and put my covers on. So there's my tutorial for this album. Please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. Please just say nice things, or you know, things you would like to see in the nicest way possible. I'm super open to feedback. Actually, this tutorial came from a comment saying, hey, do you have a tutorial for this album? And I've been holding on to that comment for like 7 months, knowing that I wanted to be able to say yes. So go ahead, like, comment, subscribe. I'm hoping to get another tutorial done with those albums made out of card kits so that you have that as well. But I appreciate you guys hanging around. I appreciate subscribing, all the likes and the views. It helps just, you know, grow the channel and be seen, because this is my outlet and my therapy. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next crafty video.